Hey everybody, Breakout 15. On Breakout 14, remember we made those invincible bricks that couldn't be broken. So this time we're going to create a brick called a countdown brick. And what that brick does is it'll show up and it'll say like 5 on it, okay? And the first time you hit it, then it'll be like 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1, etc. And then it'll go away. So it's like you have to hit it like 4 or 5 times in order for it to work, okay? All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is let's make some bricks that are these countdown bricks, okay? So let's scroll on down here to make bricks. And remember here we had if the random number is 95, then we're creating greater than or equal to 95, then we're creating invincible bricks. So let's do the same thing. Let's say if random is greater than equal to 90, then we are going to say new brick equals brick rect, comma, we're going to use the same color, I think. So we'll put that in there. And then let's say this brick. So how many points do you think one of these countdown bricks should be worth? I'm thinking like 50 points. And then we are going to say countdown. We're going to call it a countdown brick. Okay. So if we get a random number above 95, we get an invincible brick. If we get a random number that's between 90 and 95, we get a countdown brick. Otherwise, we just get a plain old normal brick. Okay. So that's kind of how that works. So let's go up here when we make this countdown brick and let's see what sorts of things we can do. Okay, so let's scroll up here. Here is our brick, and what we can do here is now we can say self.countdown equals 0. Okay, so a regular brick would have a 0 countdown. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create a text box that is going to be drawn on top of the brick. And that little text box will have our number in there, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can actually see what's going on. Okay, now we're making a very generic brick. So let's create a variable called show text. And we're going to make this false, okay, because typically a brick does not have any text on it. But this countdown brick would have text on it, and maybe you'd have other specialized bricks that would have text on it. Okay, so there's self.showText is false, and we are going to say self.brickText equals, and then we're going to use our text box here. Now our text box has basically an X, Y, and a size and a color, right? Okay, so our X, our brick is at the rectangle, right? So our rectangle, if we want to look at it, is a tuple. If you remember, it has like an X value and then a Y value and then a width and a height. Okay, that's our rectangle tuple. Okay, but what we need is we need the X part of that rectangle tuple, which is the 0th element in that tuple. So what we do is we can say self.rect and then parentheses 0 or square brackets. So that's getting the 0th element of that rectangle. Okay, and then we also need the the 1th element, first element of that rectangle, right? So there's our brick text. We need the size of the text. We're going to make that 25. And then we need, let's see here. We're going to go to the next line here, and we are going to say pygame.color black. I think black text is going to look pretty good on there. And then our background for the text happens to be the color of the brick itself. So we do self.color, right? Okay. So therefore, we have now created a text box that shows the color. Okay, so we need one more thing in this constructor, and that's basically if the kind is a countdown, then we want to show the text, right? Okay, so let's do that. Let's say if self.kind is equal to countdown, right? Then we can say self.show text is equal to true. Okay, so now we're there. Now we're going to show text on our countdown bricks. Okay, so we're getting close here. Let's draw the text on top of our brick. Okay, and that is basically in our draw command. So first we are returning, first we are creating the rectangle. Okay, now we don't want to return because it'll just drop right out. So I'm just going to say temp equals that, and then down here I'm going to say return temp. I use temp a lot when I need just a temporary variable. And here we need to do self.brickText, okay, because that's the text that's part of our brick object, and we need to draw, okay, and what we're drawing, we have to pass the screen, which we already have because our draw command already pulls in the screen. And then we got to do our text. And our text is basically quote, and then we're going to put inside the curly brackets self.countdown. Okay, because we want to put our countdown on top of the brick text. We have one more thing here, up here on line 38, 39. We also need to say self.countdown equals 5. Okay, so our countdown brick has 5 counts in it. It has text that we're going to show. And let's just see if it runs. Okay, we may have an error here, but you never know. So we have run. Oh, look at that. So we have drawn zeros everywhere with the exception of, like, there's a 5 on that green. There's a 5 on that red. So basically we're drawing the text regardless of whether it's a countdown brick or not. So let's fix that real quick. Okay, so that's in our draw loop, or in our draw function. We are just going to say if self.kind is equal to countdown, then we're going to draw the brick. Otherwise we don't. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, so that looks pretty good, but it looks like it needs, the little letters need to be scooched over a little bit and down a little bit. So let's see if we can change that. We would change that where we defined our text box. So let's close that. And here's where we defined our text box, line 36. So we're going to say self-direct. We're going to say plus, this is our x coordinate. So maybe plus, I don't know, maybe 12. And our y coordinate will do plus maybe 3. So we're scooting it over and then down a little bit. And let's hit run. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Now if I were to play this, you know, those countdown blocks, they don't do anything yet because we still have to go into where the ball interacts with the brick, you know, to decrement that countdown and eventually get rid of it. Okay. That shouldn't be too hard. Let's go take a look at that little bit of code. We're going to scroll down here. All right, so here we are where our brick is interacting with the ball. And what we're going to do is we're going to systematically look at our bricks and then deal with that, okay? So first off, we're going to rewrite this if statement here so we can handle it a little bit easier. And we're going to start with this. If b.kind is equal to normal, okay, so we have a normal brick. Now, if a normal brick happens, then we need to bump up the score. We need to bump up the score. So we score plus equals b dot points. Okay. And bricks dot remove b. Okay. So if we have a normal one, that's exactly what we do. That is bricks, not brick. Okay. Now, if the kind if the b dot kind is a countdown one, then we need to count it down. Okay. So we need to say b dot countdown minus equal 1 because we're subtracting 1 from the countdown. And then we're going to just say if b dot countdown is equal to 0, in other words, we've counted all the way down, then we can say score plus equals b dot points. Okay, so that'll give us our 50 points, I think it is. And then bricks dot remove b. Okay. And then our final thing is right here. We can just say else. Okay. So if it's not normal, it's not countdown, then that means it's an invincible brick. And we really don't do anything in that else, so we're going to just type in pass, okay? Pass is a fancy word that basically says don't do anything, okay? So, and then if there's no more bricks, then we go through that. I think that'll work, okay? So that's a little bit different the way that we wrote that, but a lot of times you'll have to play around with those if statements and really think through your logic. Here we go. Let's run it. Okay, so we have a 5 here, and we got, let's see. So we got a 5 over here. Let's see if I can hit some of those 5s and see if they... Let me move my mouse out of the way. Oh, boy. Okay, we still haven't hit a 5 yet. Okay, now it's a 2. New game. Okay. So I do believe that that is working. And now we have a countdown brick, and that's kind of cool. All right, that's it for Breakout 15. And I will see you on Breakout 16, which I believe is our last one. All right, bye.